to check in with the originals, Paul Michael Glaser and David Soul. It's so funny to see those old clips.
Boy, it sure is. You have to be sitting over here and look at it. You look pretty good in those days.
Thank you.
Oh,
you did too.
You don't look so bad now.
You don't look so bad. Now, did you guys like go to the same jacket store to buy your wardrobe?
No, only a woman would ask that question.
A woman would ask that question.
If you hadn't brought it up,
if I'd been wearing that sweater, how would you have felt?
I would have felt like you were really getting back into that 70s cool thing. I'm not sure it works on a guy these days.
Really.
It's really interesting how so many 70s TV shows are turning back into movies, and now they've done the movie treatment to Starsky and Hutch. This was something they talked about for a long time. Did you ever think that they would go that way?
Well, you know, in the beginning, no. But as the years wore on, it became, you know, clear that the public really seemed to like the show and seemed to have a lot of longevity, even though we only shot it for 4 years. So I guess you could say that, you know, we started to feel like it was in the offing. And then about a year ago. Do I hear something in my ear?
Yeah, you hear you. Wielding guns, not very safely, I would say.
Well, I don't remember that scene particularly. I probably held it quite safely in other cases.
I'm sure you did. One of the things that was really cool about this show back then was that you guys were the epitome of cool and hip, running all over town, saving lives, catching criminals, and looking good while doing it. How big was the wardrobe and the hair as part of the whole package back then? I know how big your hair was.
The hair was a little out of control for me, but the wardrobe basically for me was what's comfortable. He was the clothes horse.
Yeah, when I look back now and seeing where I am today, I'm very grateful that I had the experience with hair. It was nice.
What was it like working in, because the two of you do have, David, a cameo role in the new Starsky and Hutch film, and we've got a clip, so we're going to roll that as we talk about what the experience was like. Being back on the set together, working with your old TV partner. What was that like?
Well, I mean, it's always a pleasure to walk on the set with this guy. And I think it was doubly the pleasure of, I mean, we walked on, we got a reception that's normally left for, you know, people of some repute. And they gave us a hand when we walked on the set.
That was very nice.
It was very nice.
That was very nice.
You really don't want to jump the clutch. Yeah, I usually pop.
And there you are giving the instructions on how to treat the
Don't jump the clutch.
Don't jump the clutch.
It's not
baby.
How do you feel Owen did as you and Ben did as you? Because the two characters had very different personalities.
I think Ben did Ben really studied this, and he was a fan, and he did a good job, did a really good job.
He said when he was a kid, he used to be you. He used to watch Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah, I think he mentioned that. Yeah, well, I said, how did you do that? I was a kid, too.
I thought Owen was terrific. He marches to his own drummer. He's got his own sort of style. And that's a compliment to a guy. He didn't try to do me, you know, which I appreciate.
Brought his own...
He brought his own sort of personality, his own way of doing it. And I think that's proper, you know, if you're going to take up a character that has a kind of... I don't know, identification that David Soul had as Hutch, and make it your own. And so I applaud him for that. I thought he did a very good job.
And how important is chemistry? Because one of the things when you guys were on the show that people talked about then and continued to talk about when you read the write-ups that were later on was just how well you worked on the set together. The two of you playing off one another. It just worked.
I feel sorry for him.
The show was about friendship.
That's why.
It was a buddy film.
Yeah, it was about friendship. It was, I mean, after all is said and done, that's really what it was about. And to whatever extent that David and I were playing cops and tried to give cops a more humanistic portrayal than they had received up to that point, you know, that we filled that world with as much humanity as we could. But it was about friendship. It was about
very much so
how we cared about each other.
You have to go back into the 70s, you know. This was not a glitzy technological age. You know, there were only 3 channels. You know, and when shows were built, they were built probably right from the top on all the way down on a much more human level. This was, granted, it was a formula to begin with, and we kind of, you know, there were certain connect the dots
That you had to do.
that had to be done. But within the framework and outside that framework, the relationship Paul and I developed really expanded that. And so we played on many different levels, you know, comic and farce and drama and tragedy, action.
It was all there.
Yeah.
You hear a lot of people say, you know, they just don't make shows today like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of respects, they
true.
don't. You know, your show lives on in reruns and has fans today who are the same age that, you know, Ben and Owen were when they were kids watching you guys in the 70s. What is it that's not happening in television now that happened when this show was so popular?
You know, I think that, first of all, to put some perspective on it, when we were doing Starsky and Hutch, I'm sure there was a whole bunch of people who were saying, you know, they don't make shows quite like they used to.
Right. And look at the two of you guys as proof positive of that.
So you know, I think what happens is that they call it the writing. They say the writing changes. But I think that the audience also becomes much more sophisticated in terms of the amount of time it takes them to absorb the information. So they can go from point A to point B to C much faster in a much more sophisticated way.
Yeah.
So it becomes more difficult to tell a story in depth while you have the facility to make it look so shiny and, you know, full of ginger.
The glitz and glamour.
The glitz and glamour.
Well, Starsky and Hutch was a hilarious TV show, as we are reminded by seeing these clips, and it's a fun movie, and it's great to see the both of you back together
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks very much.
We'll see you at the theater.